The process can and should vary, right? As to how you do it, that's your skill, that's your prerogative, right? But that you have to figure out how you do it. Because if you ask me the same questions you ask my wife, we're both engineers, we may answer them differently, and each of us has a slightly not slightly, quite a bit of, we're both developers, but we have different skills. So if you judge me by questions that Meena would answer better, or judge Meena by questions that Krish would answer better, I don't think you're doing justice to either of us, or to yourself, or to your organization. So it's your job, I think, as an engineer, as a manager, as a director, as a VP. Again, I've played all of these roles myself, right? At the startup, I play each of these roles at Snowpal. So the title means nothing to me, right? We are people building software, trying to hopefully make the world a slightly better place, and also making a living for ourselves and being successful, right? We're not like the Mother Teresa's or the Gandhis or the MLKs. We are not doing it necessarily for the larger charitable good. We are for-profit organizations, but at the same time we can help and nurture and help other people grow and make a living. I think that's, in a way, I feel like I do feel proud about that. If I can teach someone a tiny little thing, then I feel like I've given back to the community, right? As insignificant as it could be, it makes me feel better about myself. So I think you ought to be fair, but you have to find how you have to not treat people like bots. I've seen people throw the same questions at like a number of candidates, and I'm pretty certain, because they ask me questions which are very, very unrelated to my interest, my passion, my type of work. And I'm like, okay, maybe they have a list of questions, you're just reading it out from a page. I don't think that makes for a great interview. It makes for a terrible interview, right? So, okay, that's one point. Let's keep going. What's next here? Okay. Ask questions that you know the answers to genuinely, not by looking up interview questions. Yeah, this is not a big deal, but sometimes I feel like people are asking questions that they don't know the answers to, because after I give them an answer that they may or may not have expected, they come back with a response which actually, from an engineering standpoint, sometimes or quite often doesn't make sense to me. And I'm like, I would be like, you forget that you're in an interview, right? You're just talking to an engineer. You're like, you know what, that design doesn't make sense, or that approach doesn't make sense, or that architecture could be problematic, or it may not scale. And then you realize that you catch them off guard because they don't have a follow-up answer, because they just picked up a question from somewhere and they did not expect you to pose like a follow-up question. It was not meant to be a conversation. It was just meant to be a unidirectional bulleted type of question, right? So you want to make sure to save a little bit of embarrassment on all sides, just make sure you only ask questions that you know the answers to, or be open about what you know or don't know about it, right? I don't want to pick an AI or a machine learning question, given the fact that I'm super eager to learn it. I'm just waiting to get started with doing some of that stuff for Snowpal, but I know much is a strong word, actually. I barely know anything about it, right? I haven't done any practical work in machine learning, whether supervised, unsupervised, or AI. Now, if I try to ask someone a question, I would ask them in the interest of learning from them, not in the interest of trying to pose the question to them as though I knew it, right? There's a slight difference there, so hopefully that makes some sense. Okay, so let's keep going. The next item, I believe, has to do with memory. I know it's important to have good memory, but I don't think a lot of the jobs should require testing a candidate's memory unless the job specifically and particularly requires it. On an average day, I take someone like me, I write code on Dart and TypeScript and just vanilla JavaScript and Ruby, different frameworks within each of these languages, on the gateway, doing some Lambda stuff, doing some messaging stuff, doing UI, UX reviews, writing some CSS, HTML, React, Backbone, and the whole 9 yards, literally in any given week. Which means if you try to test my syntax on a particular language, it may not be perfect at the time, because you have to, when we switch tags and repos, it takes us a few minutes to just get adjusted to that language and that repo, because not all of us are polyglot full stack engineers, right? So what you want to test is not our memory necessarily, right? You just want to test whether we've done it, whether we're being truthful and honest about it, and there's numerous ways to doing that. And the more experience you would have as an interviewer or as someone who's done that, the easier it is going to be for you to ask those types of questions. So memory is good, but just don't judge people based on that. Yeah. Okay, the next is coding syntax is is less important than problem solving abilities, right? There's a lot of syntactic sugar, whether you're, like if it's TypeScript, you're using a fat arrow, you're using functions and methods, and when you switch between languages, our syntax is different. We all rely on linters and formatters and a plethora of other things where we don't want to be spending energies on. So don't get bogged down by syntax. Let people just write it the way they would write it, especially in an interview that's time boxed like 30 minutes. And then ask them, hey, would you do it any differently if you had more time, which you would do in the real world? Because sometimes, we are hiring people, like the hiring process looks like you're hiring like somebody for doing brain surgery. And then after they get hired, you're making like CSS changes. I mean, with all respect to CSS, right? I'm not saying anything is easy. But hopefully you get the point, right? I mean, it's sometimes we make the interviews a whole lot more difficult than the end positions end up being. That's what I've personally felt, yeah. Okay, so this one probably speaks to someone like me, I think. Okay, not everyone is an extrovert, so don't reject candidates because they spoke lesser or didn't articulate well enough. People tell me I articulate all right. I have a long way to go. I know I have to improve in all aspects of whatever it is I do in my life. But I'm an extrovert, right? And of late, I've kind of become a recluse of some sort. But when I actually talk to people, I forget that I've become a recluse, and my original self exhibits itself, presents itself in full force. But not everyone likes to talk, and sometimes people are very quiet. They write code. I have friends who you have to pay them to talk, right? So it's easier, I think, for people like I who are chatty to clear an interview sometimes than it is for people who are not. That's what I think. I could be wrong. Tell me what you think. But then that's a wrong way to go, right? Sometimes you're better off having the less chattier person because they are actually eating up less of your time. And this doesn't speak to me selling myself very well, but I'm saying that so everything has its own good. Some positions need people to talk a bit more, other positions don't require that. Ultimately, you need to enjoy what you do, and we are all unique, and I think it's important to recognize that. So please don't go looking for an introvert or an extrovert or this person or that person. Just look for the best person who can do the job for you, right? And again, I'm not talking about the legalities of what you shouldn't be doing, right? That we all understand and recognize and appreciate and follow. But we have to go way beyond what the law requires to be good people, right? So I think figure out what someone's strength is and then tap into that strength. If being quiet is their strength, that's a pretty solid strength. I would love to speak lesser, trust me. And more than me, my wife would love for me to speak a few fewer words. I just, I talk a lot. I understand that, yeah. Okay, what is the next item here? Remember that you have a need and need help. So the candidate is no more desperate than you are, right? So it's like, yeah, sure. Sometimes they say it's the job market is good, bad, or ugly, but outside of that, I've done this for like 2 decades. I'm sure the market's changed. When I started looking for work, I was in Houston. I was not, I did not graduate with a computer science. I did 3 masters with a lot of software courses, but none of them, I didn't do a computer science degree, right? So technically I've had to compete with folks who graduated with a computer science degree. But again, you don't compete with other people, you only compete with yourself. And I've always believed that. So, but I think the important thing to note is they are no more desperate. Even when I was 20 years younger and I needed a job, I mean, I still need work. I need to pay Snowpal server costs. We are a bootstrap funded, ambitious startup. We want to be self-sufficient. We do plenty of stuff, so there's need for a lot of money. So yeah, we're not all wealthy people, right? But desperation is different. I mean, we cannot look for work losing self-respect, right? That's very, very important. That's the top of the list. Like if you go to Maslow's hierarchy, I don't know where this would show up, but for some of us, it's at the very top of the list, right? I would do everything to appease my client as long as I sense the respect in both the directions, and I'm very careful when I sign up for work because I think that's literally one of the most important things for me, right? What they pay me is obviously important because I need to pay my bills. But not anywhere closer to other things that are important. I think, do I love the work? Do I like the technology? Do I like the team? Do I like the people? That's extremely important, right? But remember that they are no more desperate than you are. It's very, very hard to find good people. Trust me, we need people. We have different people helping us at Snowpal all the time. Sometimes folks try to oversell themselves, and sometimes I'm using it, you